Hello Linux fans, Rob here and welcome to Linux Quest. Today we're going to take a look at an operating system that I've had my eye on for some time. I actually installed it a few weeks back and worked with it some for probably over a 2-day period, messed around with it. And something else came along and I installed over it and anyway, been meaning to get to this for some time. Recently they have released a beta version, and this is KaOs 2016.09, I do believe. And with this beta release came a few new features and a new package or two that was previously not pre-installed. And so I thought, okay, I've said in the past, I typically don't go over beta software, so I've decided I'm just not going to say that anymore. Go ahead and install this beta software and see what this is all about. And I'm glad I did. This is truly a different distribution. And so I'm also going to say that this is going to be a longer than normal review because I've recently had request to go into the settings of KDE and go through the configuration of the KDE desktop. So I figured I would take this opportunity to do both. Now, for people who are just wanting to find out about KaOs and what it's about, I'm going to go through that in the first part, and then I'll try to give a little indication that, okay, now I'm switching over to the settings configuration portion of the KDE desktop so that you're kind of warned that, hey, we're moving on here as far as talking about the operating system. So with that all said, let's jump in and look at some of the things that I really want to point out to you. I'm going to start out by saying that KaOs is a distribution that's probably not for everyone, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just that this is a distribution that has a very sharp and direct focus on Qt and the KDE desktop environment. Their focus there relates to the applications that are available also for this distribution. So they say here KaOs is independent, and that's the other thing. I applaud them for building this from scratch and focusing so close and pinpointing, hey, this is the desktop that we want to focus on. And I happen to be a fan of KDE and Plasma 5 and the things that are going on there. If you see some of my other videos, that's currently KDE Neon is my distribution of choice, and I've been tempted a few times with a couple of recent releases, but at any rate, I really appreciate that the developers have decided to really focus in on this, and the fact that they've built this OS from scratch. So there's a lot of dedication there. But with that all said, you have limited repos because again the focus here is on an environment of applications that work well and look good with the KDE desktop. So what they have done is, since it has limited repositories, it says for many users the options available will be plenty. When that is not the case, one of the reasons why Pacman was chosen as the package manager comes into play. It offers the easiest solution available to build your own packages. So the KaOs Community Packages, or KCP, was created so everyone can share the package builds they created or adjusted for KaOs. So I'm pointing all of this out to say, and maybe you want to think of this like the Arch user repository, for example, but I'm saying this to you because before you take the time to download the ISO or try it in a live environment, I would suggest you go to the KCP, and here they have very nice categories that you can go in and do a search. And I'll just give you one example. If we go to Office, and we're going to step through this a little later as well, you will not see LibreOffice here. So what they have pre-installed is the Calligra Office suite. And so, the reason that I mention that is because if you depend on LibreOffice, currently today, I do not see that it's available. However, WPS Office is something that was built for KaOs, and I happen to love that Office suite for Linux. I think it's great, and so is LibreOffice. But if this would work for you as opposed to LibreOffice, then there you go. There's an option. But you can see here how limited in the Office section this is. You're certainly not going to find the list of applications that you would find in the Arch user repository or the Ubuntu software manager or App Center. You're just simply not going to, because again, the team is very focused here on their core competency, which is KDE and the Qt environment. So go ahead and check out their website. Go over to the KCP, and then you can search through there to see if the software that you may want would be available. Alright, so from there we're going to let's see here. I want to pop over to News. Here we go. KaOs 2016.09. So they point out a few things that I will cover here as well, and there's a few things that caused me to want to install the beta. First of which is that the Plasma desktop includes frameworks 5.2.6 and Plasma 5.7.90. So that's a very recent version of Plasma, and 5.8 is right around the corner here, but this is a very recent release. So I thought it'd be a good time, since we're going to go through the settings of KDE, that hey, we've got a very current version, and could kind of kill two birds with one stone. Look at KaOs, and then again later go into the settings. So that was one of the reasons I wanted to go ahead and install their beta. And then they have KDE application 16.08.1 and not yet released ports of KDE applications, all built on Qt 5.7.0. So I say all of that if you are interested in the KDE Plasma 5 desktop environment and kind of everything that's going on there, a lot of it, some of it is cutting edge, and a lot of it is certainly new, then I think this is a distribution that would certainly warrant taking a look at. And it's got some other things that they have done here with this beta version, and that's updates to the base of the system. And that's MPEG stuff, systemd, Poplar, Python, GStreamer, so on and so forth. And then they've added, well, let me back up here a minute. Yes, they have installed a first run wizard, and that's called Captain. And I've seen Captain before. Boy, I think it was years ago. But it was really refreshing to see that implemented again. So those are some of the reasons. And with this being a rolling release, and we'll maybe look at the kernel here. Let's see if they mention anything about the version of kernel. We'll take a look at that. But everything here is very up to date. So my previous statements in other videos about I typically don't look at beta software, I'm just not going to say that anymore, because some of the beta software just feels like it's ready to go and ready for release, and this I would include in that list. It's very fast, and it's amazing how light this KDE desktop environment feels on KaOs. So I don't know if they've done some behind the scenes tweaking, that kind of thing. Anyway, I digress. Let me move on here. So I want to go ahead and show you Captain, and while I'm navigating to that, I will say that the installation was very smooth and straightforward. I wiped the entire drive on this test system for the install, and I believe that's under Utilities. Yep, there we go. For the install, and it was Calamari's installer, and again, straightforward. Got everything installed, and the boot up time, I rebooted, went in, did some updates. There were very few packages to update, and did a reboot and a mental count, and it came in right at 22 seconds. So I was pretty impressed with that. All right, so once you have, once you've got everything set up and installed and you boot for the first time, you're presented with, instead of a welcome screen, you are presented with the Captain desktop. And I really like what they've done here, because if you're a first-time user, as you'll see here as we step through this, it prompts you through settings that you would otherwise probably go through anyway. Now, I don't know that you would go through mouse setup behavior, but one thing that I always look for is I go in and I choose single click to open files and folders. Now, this was chosen by default, but if I were one who was used to double click to open files and folders, I have that option here. And then we have button order for right hand or left hand or reverse scrolling. So that part is important. If you're a lefty, you may not know where to go once you've launched into this system for the first time, if it's your first time seeing it. And here you're presented with options. And then you click next. And now you're in an area where you could go in and customize your desktop. Now, this is not necessary for operation of the OS. However, again, it's an area where if you're new to KDE, maybe you're not new to Linux, but you're new to KDE, you may not know where to go, to change your Windows style or your themes and those kinds of things. And I'm not going to, there's other areas where we're going to go in the settings section where I will show you where all of these settings are. But to be presented with this out of the gate is very nice. Now, I'll point out while I'm here that by default it's Midna, M-I-D-N-A. Hopefully that's the way they pronounce it. That's their set of icons and their own built-in theme. And the icons are attractive and professional looking. This is a really light theme. I'm probably going to change, I'll go ahead and change the wallpaper here in a minute. Alright, so once you've gone through and you're presented with those options, you click next. And now you're presented with a choice for the KDE application launcher. You have 3 options there. Now that's a part of the settings that I would go over. In fact, I changed it already, and what happened is the normal KaOs icon that you saw here went away because I changed one of the options. By default it's set to application menu, but you have launcher and dashboard, and we'll get into those settings a little later as well. So, as a new user or a new KDE desktop user, you've got that option. Then you can go in and choose wallpaper. So let's go in and select a different wallpaper. That's interesting. Pretty nice selection. So we'll click next. And now I thought this was also a nice addition. You can create your own avatar here. So you've got options for your internal camera, or you could choose an image. And again, that's an area where some people just may not know where to go. So to be prompted through this, I will applaud you for using Captain here. I would like to see some form of this as opposed to just a welcome screen perhaps. I would like to see some form of this for other distributions. Alright, so we're almost finished here. You're presented with a summary of everything that you've chosen, and if you don't like what you see, you can always go back. And now we're going to apply settings. Now you're presented with more of what I would say would be a welcome screen. It says, congratulations, your settings have been applied, and now you can start enjoying KaOs. Don't forget to join our community. So the next thing that you see in the list of menus here is system settings. So we could click on that and go right into the main settings, and then you have help and support. I think it would be good if they could add a third panel here that would say add remove software, and then you could launch right into that from there. But otherwise, I'm really pleased to see this. I think this is job well done here. So I'm going to click finish, and now you can launch in and start using your desktop. Let's go ahead, and I probably will jump around a little bit here. I want to go ahead and jump on over to your package manager, and Octopi here is what you will see for software updates. That was right now it's kind of it's transparent looking. It was red once I booted into the system and connected to the wireless network. It was red, so I was able then to right click and open. and I was presented with, I want to say about 15, 16 updates. But here is where you will go to manage your software. And this is where, okay, it's not beautiful. As I've already told you, you're going to be, pretty limited on the software that you will find. Let's go over here to graphics. So you have categories on the right. And then if we go to view, we can say non-installed. So you can just see here, graphics, I've got 3, 6, 8 apps. So if you're looking for an OS with hundreds and hundreds of applications in their repositories, I would just go ahead and say, this is not the OS for you unless you're just really interested in what they're doing here. And I think it is interesting what they're doing here. They have decided that this is the roadmap we want to follow. This is where our interest lies, and they have dedicated themselves to it. And so if you can find here what works for you as far as a day in, day out operating system, if you can find those applications either here or in the KCP, I think it would be interesting to run this a while to see how, number one, how well everything runs, how well everything looks and interacts with the desktop environment. And number two, number three, number three, how stable is it? And it could be with all of this focus, instead of trying to be a little bit of everything to everyone, you are, intently focused here on a few key things, and you've got this roadmap in place. And if you adhere to whatever guidelines are in place, for your desired operating system, then you may wind up with extremely good results in an operating system. Now, I haven't used this long enough to attest to any of that. I'm just thinking about, what would be the purpose behind that, and if it was done correctly, what would be the outcome of that. So, this is where you would go for updates. This is where you would go for finding your software. And this is Octopi version 0.9.0. And in quotation, Qt 5.7.0. Pac-Man version 5.0.1. All right, and this is also where you would build your apps out. Again, it's not a beauty queen, but it's certainly a good tool as far as software management. All right, so let's go ahead and look at some of these applications, and a lot of these are new to me, and I'm going to go through this because this is going to be such a long video anyway. I'm going to kind of go through some of this pretty quickly. So under development, you've got Qt Assistant, Compare, which I wasn't familiar with, and Qt Designer, which most of you will be familiar with. Under education, you have Science, and you've got KDE Marble there. And if you've never looked at that, I just want to open it. I've always been impressed with this. I thought, this. You think back to the days before Google Maps, and spin the globe and all of that. So I think this is a really well done application. You can't get into the detail that you could with Google Maps today as far as zooming in, but it certainly is a well done, polished application. So if you do install this, I would say play around with this for a while. It would be great from an educational standpoint. And again, it's an application that you're normally not going to see pre-installed in most distributions. Over to games, they have one card game, KPatience, not familiar with that. Under graphics, now some of these are more common. You'll see GwenView, Carbon, Krita, and Ocular. Now, Carbon I haven't really spent any time with. This is just about unreleased Framework 5. So this just looks like a simple, easy note app. Alright, let's pop back over. And then under Internet, this is where you're going to see a few things that are different. First of all, you will not see Firefox pre-installed. You will not see Chromium pre-installed. But what you do have is the option of Conqueror, which has been around a long time. And I was kind of a fan of Conqueror, even in the or early on days of the KDE desktop environment. I always thought it was a competent, easy to use, fast browser. So you'll see that, and you'll see Quipzilla, which I don't know that I've ever used that, but again, it seems to be light and fast. Kind of straightforward. You've got a bar here for favorites and that kind of thing. So anyway, we'll move on here. Again, under Internet, I'm not familiar with this Quasel IRC client, and of course here's one that I've got a video on and I just think is an excellent application, which is KDE Connect. That allows you to connect your iPhone or your Android phone to your Linux operating system, and you've got two-way communications there, so you can get alerts and alarms and messages that come in. And now they have the latest version. You're able to return a text message from your computer back to the person who sent you the text, which is just really cool. So I've got a whole separate video on that if you're interested in seeing that. Now, it will work with other desktop environments other than KDE, but I think it certainly does its best work in the KDE desktop environment. So great to see that pre-installed. C-File, I'm not familiar with that. Skype, of course, that's going to be one that's familiar. And then IM Contacts. Fat Rat, which is a download manager, that was new to me. And then under Multimedia, you've got Cantata, and that's music management. K3B, Camoso, not familiar with that at all. I believe that's camera app. And then two that you're probably more familiar with: MPV Media Player, Simple Screen Recorder I installed, and then SM Player and SM Tube. SM Tube is kind of a wrapper for YouTube, so you could go in and search for. So let's do, hey, Linux Quest. Let's try that. I've heard this guy's crazy. You probably shouldn't watch his videos. Yeah, so there we go, Linux Quest. So it pulled that right up. Here's one on Manjaro, Deepin OS. So yeah, that's kind of neat. May have to check that out later and just see what that's all about. But again, you're not going to find your typical applications here. Under Office Suite, Calligra Sheets, Stage, Words. Some of these are familiar. Ocular. Then they have Plan and Work Package Handler. Now, what I don't see here is the KDE PIM. So again, this is just telling us that this is unreleased framework. I'm amazed at how fast this thing runs. All right, so this looks like a project manager. Everything here is just, this is lightning fast. I mean, okay, so the file manager took a little longer, but that's pretty fast. And you'll see here their icon themes. I think they did a good job here choosing the theme, and everything matches. Pretty cohesive look here and attractive icons. This is Dolphin File Manager. Nothing unusual here other than Dolphin's a great file manager. That's one of the main benefits, I think, of, in my opinion, of the KDE desktop environment is it's a top-of-the-line file manager. All right, let's move on quickly here. You got Settings, System. One of the new pieces of software that was pre-installed was IsoRider, and so it's nice to see that. And I think this is based off of Rosa. I believe it's Rosa, R-O-S-A, image writer. And so this is either like the open source version of Rosa image writer. It seems like I read something about that. So anyway, it's nice to have that built in. We're going to go ahead and close down the file browser here. And let me make sure I'm not missing anything. So under Utilities, you had Sweeper. And I don't recall seeing that a few weeks ago when I installed KaOs for the first time. And that basically is a file system cleaner. So you could go in and clean out cookies, web history, thumbnail cache, so on and so forth. I think that's a nice addition to have that pre-installed. Spectacle for screen clips, KWrite for quick notes, Kate for quick notes, IsoRider we talked about, and then HP Device Manager for printing, and then Zip Manager here. So, pretty good selection. I'm going to say it's a fairly medium. Yeah, I'm going to say medium to light install as far as the pre-installed applications go, and for the most part, the limited amount of time, again, I'm going to say this again, the limited amount of time I have spent with KaOs, or KaOs, I'm just not quite sure how they pronounce that. This does not feel beta. I've had 0 hiccups, no freezes, no sudden or random reboots or anything of that nature. And the speed of this is really, really impressive. Now I'm running this on a system with an SSD drive and 4 gigs of RAM with a Core i3 processor. So, it's certainly not a beast of a machine. It's not a netbook, but it's not a beast of a machine. But this is very fast. And I'm going to say this again. I've said it probably way too much, but I'll say it one more time. If you have not tried the KDE Plasma 5 desktop environment, if all you know is what was going on with KDE 4, I would just challenge you to give it a try through your distribution of choice and spend 2 or 3 days with it. And I think you'll see that what KDE Plasma of old was known for being heavy and those kinds of things. I think you'll see that is not the case with KDE Plasma 5. Alright, so I'm going to kind of wrap this up. This was an overview of KaOs. I like the core focus that they have. I don't know that I would be able to find everything that I would want in way of applications here. I'm intrigued though that I think about this, and I think it would be worth running for 4 or 5 days just to see, from a standpoint of stability and things like that, how everything interacts. Because again, I'm currently running as my daily driver KDE Neon, and that's kind of cutting edge. But there's a whole host of software available there. Not all of it runs just beautifully as far as looks are concerned, but at any rate, I'm a big KDE fan. So, alright, so that's going to conclude the overview of KaOs, and again, this is the beta version, and so we may look at this again down the road. So if you're not interested in the additional settings portion of the review or of KDE Desktop that I'm going to go through, so now's your time to exit the video or move on to another video. And so then we'll begin by just digging into the settings. And so I've had some requests for settings and can't talk this evening. Settings and configuration in the KDE Desktop environment. So we'll go ahead and cover some of that. So the first thing I'm going to launch into is the KDE panel, and this is a very easy panel to configure. You can right click, let me silence my phone. You can right click on the panel and choose panel options, and from there you're going to have 4 options. You have panel settings, lock widgets, add panel, and add widgets. So for now we're going to go to panel settings, and you'll see another bar pop up, and this bar gives you several options to do with the panel. It screen edge, which means location, so if we want to move that panel to the top, we simply drag to the top. You'll see a little change in the cursor there. It goes into a little fist, and we could drag that over to the left or to the right. I'm going to put it back to the top. You can also adjust the height. Okay, you see that? The icons scale out, and I just want you to take note, those icons have not become blurry even though this is outrageously large. Alright, so we're going to take it back down to a normal level. So again, very easy to control and manipulate. It's basically click and hold, or click and drag if you will, for placement of the panel and to increase the size of the panel. Now you could also go in here and you can add certain things to the panel. So we could add a widget, and you're going to pop up and you're going to have a selection of widgets here. And because we have a different icon theme, your panel of widgets may look different. So let's scroll down here to, let's see here. Let me find something. I want to find something that's going to be okay. Let's apply the trash can. So what we're going to do there, we're going to drag that over to the panel. And so now we have put the trash can widget in the panel, and so we could empty trash from there if we wanted to. Alright, so that's just kind of a quick overview there. Now there's other changes that you can make. So if you wanted to go in and adjust your date and your time, you would right click on the clock and go to set time, or excuse me, go to digital clock settings. So we're going to go ahead and choose that, and here you could turn off 24-hour clock and turn on the date, for example. You could bold the text, and now we're going to go ahead and click apply, and you'll see those changes there. You also have some options here for calendar, show week numbers, time zone. This is where you would go to change or adjust your time zone. You could add various holidays, depending on, they depend on the location, of course. And you could go in and add keyboard shortcuts that will activate various applets. Now let's talk about your taskbar settings over here. So you have, within KDE, you have what I'm going to call fair control compared to most desktop environments. Some you get one slider. Here you have 4 sliders for devices, so you could adjust your built-in audio. Any other additional devices you have connected, you could adjust there. So this is more than what a lot offer as far as volume control. Or if you had applications running, you could go ahead and adjust that there as well. Same for your Wi-Fi network. You get a fairly large drop-down window here, and then you could go right into settings from there to configure your network. So you do have a lot of control here. And then you have a little tab here. So I right-clicked. You could also click the indicator here on the far right of your panel, and you would get the same menu that drops down. Now we talked earlier, and let's go ahead and move this desktop icon here down, and I'll show you what this does in just a moment. Alright, so we talked earlier about the application menu, and you have several choices. So by default, this is what you happen to see in KaOs. However, most KDE desktop distributions that I have tried, default is the application launcher. Now, I'm not a huge fan of this, and the reason is you have to scroll. I believe this can be adjusted out. I may be wrong there. I should know that, but I typically don't use this particular setting in my application launcher. You just have to scroll, and then to me, you're kind of extra clicks and scroll, and but for each his own, and this may work for you. You've got an icon here to leave. You've got favorites, but I don't see, here's our search at the bottom. This is such a light theme here, I couldn't see the search window. So anyway, that's an option. And then the third option is application dashboard. And I actually switch to this from time to time. This is, it's easy to see. It's easy to set up your favorites. You can right click on anything and say add to favorites. You've got a large category over here, a list of categories, and alphabetical. I think they've done a nice job with this. You've got log out, reboot, and shut down here. So it's as easy as right clicking and saying alternatives. Now you can also go in and edit the applications that are listed. So if you've got, for example, a particular app, and in this case we'll go to card games because we know that's in there. So I could actually go in and say, you know what, I don't even need to see games. So I'm just going to, I'm not going to delete it, but I know I'm never going to use it. I'm just going to go ahead and delete that out of there. So I'm going to say yes. And now when we go in, we'll save that. So now when we go in, you will not see games in the list. So we'll come out and we'll change that over. We'll go back over to application menu, and no games listed. So you've got lots of control, but it goes much deeper. The configuration and the controls in the KDE desktop environment, I believe, is more configurable than any other desktop environment in Linux today. Now that's a good thing if you like to get in and you like to tinker and tweak and really control what your desktop is doing. But for other people, they have no real interest in that. And so for them, they see it as just too much going on, and I get that and completely understand that. But at the same rate, you can choose not to do that as well. It's entirely up to you. You can ignore all of that stuff and have a perfectly functional desktop. All right, now we're going to go into right-click. So you can right-click on any desktop area, whether that's virtual. You could have multiple virtual desktops set up. And you're going to have a list of options here. You've got a run command, add widgets, add panel, activities, lock widgets, lock screen, leave, and configure desktop. If we go to configure desktop, now you're going to be presented with some options as far as wallpaper is concerned. Let's go ahead and switch over to this one again. Now you have the option of get new wallpapers. And so from here it's going to log into, I believe it's called KDE Look, and you're going to have an assortment of wallpapers. You could choose categories and everything, and that's nice to have built in. Most people are probably going to go online and download a wallpaper of their choice, but it's nice to have that there. You could also go in and change your mouse actions from here, and then you have some additional tweaks. Show the desktop toolbox, which is this little icon down here in the lower left. Now for me, I see no reason to have that there. What it does is kind of the same thing that you get if you right click. So for me it's kind of redundant. So I'm going to uncheck that. And now we do want to leave this on, widget handling. Press and hold widgets to move them and reveal their handles. So we'll do that. I'm going to go ahead and click apply. And now you see the little icon there is for the toolbox is gone. Alright, so we're going to right click and we're going to add a widget to our desktop. And let's go ahead and add an analog clock. So we're just going to simply drag that over and drop it. Now once our clock is in place, we left that option checked, which was press and hold, left click and hold, to give us options for the widget. So we're going to left click and hold, and now we're going to have the ability to enlarge that clock, and we also see a settings icon. Now this may be small in the video, but you'll find it hopefully. So there we're going to show a second hand, and we're going to ignore the time zone. So I'm going to click apply, and so now we've got a second hand running there. Alright, let's go back in, right click, desktop options, configure desktop. We're going to go to something a little simpler in appearance since we have this weird looking clock running. Now the clocks, what you'll find is that the clock will coincide with whatever theme you have installed. So if we change the theme, the appearance of this clock would also change to match the appearance of the clock would change to match the theme. Alright, and so you notice too, if you click on the clock, you get a calendar that pops up. It's not really an interactive calendar, it's just a visual clue as to what day it is. Alright, so we're going to click and hold, and we're going to kind of drag this down out of the way, and it's kind of fitting right there. Well, maybe not. Alright, so we'll go ahead and just move this out of the way. Come on, cooperate. Sometimes the widgets can be a little fidgety in their placement, but I will say that KDE has really improved their desktop widgets, and some of them are really useful. Some of them are in my opinion, pointless, but you know, it's sometimes nice to have a clock on your desktop or a calendar or things like that. So just go ahead and right click and you'd say add widgets. You could also add additional panels, so you could add a panel to the bottom and use that for different settings than what you have here at the top. Alright, now you notice there are icons here in the panel. Those are very easy to add, and they're also fairly easy to manipulate. So if you wanted to move one of these icons, let's add an icon. So we're going to right click. Actually, it's going to be easier to do that. No, let's see, we'll go ahead and stay in here. We're going to go ahead and right click, and we're going to go to Internet, and I want to add Conqueror. So I'm simply going to right click on the icon in word Conquer, and we're going to say add to panel. You could also add that as a shortcut to your desktop or as a launcher. But we're going to add this to our panel, and it's going to place that icon there. Now let's say we wanted to move that around. We could simply right click and go to Panel Options, Panel Settings. Now once you're in this mode, you have the option of grabbing the icon and moving it around. You could also delete it. So we could, you know, move this over here. And you got to be careful, because sometimes these things, as you saw there, they'll get away from you. Alright, so that gives you the options to manipulate the icons that you've added to the panel. And this is an extremely large calculator icon. I don't know what the purpose of that is there, but anyway. Alright, so let's go on and we'll get into deeper settings. Now, this is an area that you can really start to drill down into your desktop environment. And the first place you'll probably want to go is Workplace Theme. And so you'll start out under the Appearance category with Workplace Theme. You also have Color, Font, Icons, and Application Style. So we'll jump into Workplace Theme. And you notice that the theme there is the default KaOs theme. Let's change that over, and we're going to take a look at the default KDE theme. So I'm going to just simply choose that and click Apply, and you're going to notice some changes. And then we're going to go to Desktop Theme, and we're going to make sure that Breeze is selected there, and it is. You could also go to Breeze Dark, which is a nice look, so let's choose that. And you're now going to see our top panel change. Now if we wanted to change our icon theme, which it changed when we changed the theme, it also changes the icon theme. I'm going to take that over to Breeze Snow, and we're going to leave that at 48. I'm going to click Apply, and you notice now that the icon's white. You could also change the splash screen. So the default is the KaOs theme, and I'm going to leave it there because I want it to show that that's, you know, part of the OS. Alright, so we'll come out of that. Now that we've changed our theme, it's going to say Apply, and you can simply choose Yes. Now here you could go in and you could change practically every color aspect of your windows and title bars and things like that that you see within the desktop environment. I mean, you can get at a level here that you don't find in most desktop environments, and I'm going to say that you can change most of this without getting into all kinds of crazy trouble with your desktop getting out of sorts and out of whack, like could happen in other deeper settings of other desktop environments. So we're not going to change anything there. We're going to leave that as it is. Next, we're going to go into font control. And this is where, again, I think that the KDE desktop does a wonderful job. And one of the reasons why is that you can adjust all fonts. Now that's not a huge deal as far as you know, yeah, you can adjust all the fonts in other desktops, but you typically can't do it in one fell swoop, meaning you have to, in other desktops, you have to do this one, then you have to do this one, then you have to do this one. And you can do that here if you wanted to, but here you can adjust them all. So let's say I wanted to change all fonts. I would choose Font Style, and let's take that to, let's see what all we have here. They've got a pretty good list here of fonts. Let's see. Let's go to, I feel like I'm in a game here. Actually, I'm going to leave those. Those are nice fonts. But let's say I wanted to change font style. I could go to regular, bold, italic, and then I could change all font size. Now I bumped the font size up here before I started the video, just for the purposes of you being able to see, the screen. It's a high resolution screen. So anyway, so I could change universally all fonts to, bump those up to a larger size. So let's take it up to 14, for example, and we'll click apply. And you probably won't see those changes. And then here you could go in and really go in and adjust fonts that you have installed. Alright, and then the next area that we can go in and make changes will be in the icons. And so if you've installed additional icon packs, which you can get new icon themes again by simply clicking Get New Theme, and now you can go in and with one click install these new icons. And that is really a lot easier than you find in other desktop environments. And a lot of people, I'm not even sure, are aware that it's there and that it's that easy to install these themes and icons within KDE. But it's truly easier and better in most cases than other desktop environments. So we're going to change this over to Breeze Dark because we chose Breeze Dark theme, and now you're going to get a look at the standard KDE icons. Now some of this we will have to log out for, which I'm not going to go through and do right now. And then you've got application style, and so here you could get into Windows decorations to really change things out. So right now we're going to go back over to the Breeze. And when we do this, you'll notice that the title bar and everything changes, and now that is the default KDE look. You could go in and any of the applications, and in this case you're not going to find, I don't believe that you'll find any GTK GNOME applications because of the core focus with KaOs. But I may be wrong there because this is Oxygen GTK. Alright, I'm losing it tonight. But anyway, you could go in and adjust those settings. So that alone is a tremendous amount of control that you have just in appearance alone. Then you can get into workspace. Then you have personalization. These other settings here involve network and hardware. So let's go over to workspace, and you'll see here you can show informational tips. You can go in and tweak your various desktop effects. You could turn a lot of these off if you're running on a system that maybe only has 4 gigs of RAM, but it's a slower hard drive or a slower processor. You could go in and turn off quite a few of these desktop effects and not really visually notice a lot of differences there. You could go in and set up your active screen edges. So you could say in this upper left corner, I want a trigger action of showing desktop, of locking the screen, presenting all windows. And you see this in more desktop environments, and I think maybe this is again one of those things that people aren't aware of in KDE. It is touted within other desktops when you see it because it's a really nice convenient addition to the control of your OS. So you can certainly go in and set that all up within KDE. You can adjust your screen locking, so you could say lock after a certain amount of time and require a password. Here you could go in and set up and control virtual desktops and how they switch. And since this is such a long video, I'm going to move on here. Window management, and this is where you could get into window actions and behavior. So you've got click to focus, you've got title bar actions. So I could go in, for example, and say if I double click this title bar, I want it to maximize or minimize or shade or lower. And again, it goes on and on and on. Title bar and frame, taskbar switcher. So you could go in and set up visualization and content here, and then you have scripts, various scripts that you can go in and activate and add. as well as window rules that you can go in and set up for individual window behavior. So you can really truly take KDE desktop environment to a level that I don't think you can take other desktop environments to. Then you have shortcuts. So you can go in and set up keyboard shortcuts. And I know from interaction with a lot of viewers to the channel, keyboard shortcuts are a really big thing for a lot of users out there. I personally don't use a ton of keyboard shortcuts, but I know people who really live and die by keyboard shortcuts, and their ability to go in and configure this the way they like and for what they're used to is key. And I would just say that KDE probably has the ability to go in and configure shortcuts as well as or better than most desktop environments. Alright, so we're going to move on here. Startup and shutdown, so you can configure what applications are automatically loading at startup, and you could trigger certain applications to do certain things during that a certain time period. You could add scripts here, add various programs. So perhaps you've got a program that you want to start up and activate a process once you have booted into the system. You could set that up there. And then you have search. So you could go in and configure what search plugins you are using, and I believe you can just simply click to, so if I did not want to include calculator into my search, I can simply toggle that off, and maybe I don't want to include audio player. And I've always been of the frame of mind that if you just had 3 or 4 different apps that you're focused on, that your search time would be better. And then here you could go into, we're going to apply that, file search. And you could enable file search, or you could say do not search these locations. So just those two groupings there, appearance and workspace, gives you a tremendous amount of control and configuration. Display and monitor down here is straightforward and easy to use. If you had an additional monitor, it would show up here. You could scale the resolution. You could scale the display. You could change the orientation. So there are many things you can do there. And then under compositor, you may wind up here if you're ever recording your screen for doing a video like this. This is where you may have to go in to prevent screen tearing, and you would change things like go to full screen repaints and go to OpenGL 3.1 as opposed to oh gosh, your other option there is X and 2.0. And then here you would have automatic. So we're going to come out of there. I've got other videos on KDE Connect. You could go into power management, and you have a whole host of things that you can control here, from your screen brightness, if the screen dims, energy saving mode. You can run scripts here as well, wireless power savings. And I'm not going to go in and toggle all of these things. That particular tab was for AC power, and then on battery you have the similar settings that you can control. You want your system to do different things when it's plugged in than perhaps you want it to do on battery for the sake of battery life. And if you're a road warrior and you're traveling, battery life is key. So you could really go in and fine-tune this to maximize your battery life as much as possible. And then you have activity settings. We're going to discard that. And here it says do not use special settings. You could define your special behaviors here, and advanced settings, and these are all again under power management. So we could say battery levels are low at 10% and they're critical at 5%. And so at critical level we want you to hibernate, do nothing, suspend, or shut down. So again, lots of control. There are other things that we could spend a lot of time on here with the settings for KDE. We could really spend detailed drill down. Here's what happens if you do this and if you do that. Some of those things are kind of boring, really. Some of them are neat and interesting. Some of them don't work well for video because you wind up maybe adjusting something that puts the system in a weird position. Not that it would crash, just that you may get weird screen effects and things like that. So I'm going to kind of wrap it up here, and I hope that my purpose for this video, which was really kill two birds with one stone, so to speak, works. So for those of you who wanted to see the settings portion of KDE, hopefully this was enough information to be helpful. And then in the beginning, for those of you who were interested in what KaOs had to offer. So anyway, we'll wrap it up and we will check you later.